Hi there, I'm Jess, and this is a cultural perspective on Victoria, BC. I'm going to be walking you through this presentation. So, Victoria is a city in the Canadian province of British Columbia. I've included here a map of Victoria, which sits at the very bottom of what's called Vancouver Island, which is on the far west coast of Canada. The central photo on this slide is the inner harbor of Victoria. So it is a coastal city. It does have access to boats and whatnot that come in and out of the harbor. So on the far right there of the screen is what's called Oak Bay, which is an extension of Victoria. And really, I included that image just to show the natural beauty of the area and also so you get a better idea of the geography and sort of the coastline that does sit in Victoria. And here we have the demographics in Victoria. So total population is just about 86,000 people. The average age is 44 and a half years. The reason for that is really because Victoria has a University of Victoria, which draws a lot of early 20-ish years of age people. And then you have the historical context of Victoria being a retirement community because of the mild climate and the natural beauty of the area. So when you take the average of those two populations, you get a 44 and a half year middle there. In terms of language being spoken here, English is the first official language spoken by 97% of the population, so that's the predominant language here. About 64% of the population has a post-secondary certificate or diploma, so definitely I think that speaks to the fact that there is a university here, and yeah, so there's overall a pretty high level of education in this population. The median total income is 34,000. As you can see, there is a gender discrepancy there. Men do make about 6,000 more than women, which is interesting. And then if we move over to the right, we see that about 97% of the citizens here in Victoria are Canadian. And of that 90%, about 60% of those individuals are from Britain originally, and that's the ethnic origin that they identify with most. There is a fair bit of immigration to Victoria. You see there that it's kind of in that midlife period, 25 to 44-year-olds. Of those immigrants, just under half are European, and of those European immigrants, 53% are coming from the United Kingdom, so it's interesting. The other portion of immigrants are coming from Asia, about 32%, and the Philippines happens to be the most, or I should say the predominant country that those Asian immigrants are coming from. In terms of community health in Victoria, there's a local organization that's called the Capital Regional District, and you can see their emblem there on the screen. And their goal is really to enforce public health bylaws that promote and protect the health of the people. That's a direct quote there on the screen. And so what I did was highlighted the four most recent bylaws being enacted and being maintained by this organization. One of which there is the Clean Air Act. This was actually the most recent, as you can see, January 2019, and this was really an update to a previous bylaw that outlaws or bans smoking or vaping of any substance in a public area. That could be a playground, a park, by the ocean, etc. So the hope there is to create a safe environment for people to be in. The tanning regulations were really to create some sort of regulation around children and minors not being able to tan in commercial facilities until they're over the age of 18. The tattoo regulations came into place as a hope and a means to enforce the fact that a parent guardian or a parent or legal guardian needs to be present with anyone under the age of 18 getting a tattoo, and there needs to be written informed consent provided for that. And really also the other aspect of that regulation was to make sure that IDing and, checking the IDs of individuals under the age of 25 does happen at tattoo facilities. And the bottommost one there is idling control, and that was initiated to decrease the amount of time that you can leave a motor vehicle in an idle mode, really to promote better air quality here in Victoria. So just some of the projects going on here, definitely the most current and most highlighted in this area. In terms of chiropractic in the Victoria area, multiple searches came up with about 140 chiropractors in the area, and that seemed to be a pretty wide array of chiropractic. So there were upper cervical offices, and there were full spine, more wellness models, things like that. So pretty varied there. In terms of my personal niche, what I'm looking to do is actually more equine chiropractic. I do want to do human chiropractic, but I would like to focus most on horses. And so I did do a Google search on how many animal chiropractors were located on Vancouver Island, and actually none came up. So that's of interest, and definitely lends itself well to someone wanting to be an animal chiropractor. Interesting. This slide here was put in to highlight how I, as a practitioner, would like to create a space in my office that is safe for all expression, for anyone of any shape, size, gender to be able to come in and feel welcome and included. So there's 4 images on the screen. I'll speak a little bit to each and go from there. So the first is an image of a children's book, and that highlights, to me, I want to have a practice that definitely sees children and young adults, and I really want to make sure that the content that I have on the bookshelves, in the toy chests, hanging on the walls, educational handouts, etc., is inclusive of different family structures, different sexual orientations, gender orientations, and just provides that inclusivity for the entire spectrum of how someone might present. And that book in particular, I've heard really good things about and would love to have on my bookshelf for kids that come into the office to feel like they belong. The image to the right of that is the image of the trees, and that really speaks to what design I would like to have in my office, and more of the decorative nature of things. So I do want to support local artists and photographers, and I want to put forth I want to put things on the wall that are allow anyone to feel at home. And I think nature is that kind of unifying common denominator with which anyone can relate. And so I would like to have landscape images up. I'd like to have natural decorations of driftwood and plants and things like that, where it's not a whole lot of overstimulation, but it's actually a grounding place for people to come and everyone can feel at home too. In terms of the image that says informed consent, that's really important to me. And the focus there is the conversation that I want to make sure I have with each patient around their bodies and their autonomy within that body. What I mean by that is that there's an actual exchange, verbal, of do you understand, do you consent, and what do you understand how we'll be working with your body, and are you okay with that? I think so often that's overlooked and is not emphasized enough, because I think it helps our patients feel safe and like they have a say in what's going to happen. So, and a say in their care. So that's really important to me. The last image there is the group of people joining hands. And that's a representation for me of the importance of cultural proficiency, cultural competency, and that idea that trainings might actually be needed. I myself would like to undergo training. I would like my staff to undergo training, really to make sure that the languaging, the verbiage, the paperwork, and whatnot, and really how we conduct ourselves in the office, from answering the telephone to how we greet someone, is a way in which we create safety and create a sense of belonging for anyone and all people. So that's really what this slide is about, is just my vision for how I want to practice and the space I want to create. The next slide here is just my references and the list of where I got my information from. I thank you for watching this and really appreciate it. Thank you.